It is so strange that we talk so much about philosophy, so much so that, our entire CAT preparation journey is revolving around reading Eon essays, such that we could, to some extent, understand philosophy in its core essence. And here is a passage right in front of you, which I will read and try to solve, which is purely philosophical in nature. And after reading so much philosophy and, going through so much, you cannot understand this passage simply because it is too abstract, it is too vague, and there are tons of unimportant, unnecessary wording sprinkled over here and there. With that simple rant of mine, let us start this philosophical RC analysis from a past SimCat. And you can tell me whether you like the session or not by liking it and sharing it with your friends. Lazy, solipsistic, vague, and plain wrong. This sums up the problem with Bloom's criticism. Solipsistic. This is a word I am pretty much sure that you guys have not read anywhere, because so far even I haven't heard of this word. But one thing that I have understood, that you don't necessarily need the exact meaning of words, because this is an aptitude exam. This is testing you on your idea comprehension. It is not testing you on specific word usage and such. So when the first line in said that lazy, solipsistic, vague, and plain wrong, this sums up the problem with Bloom's criticism. I know one thing, that the author is also critical about Bloom's criticism. So Bloom is doing some sort of a criticism. The author is also critical about that. There may be those who want to read about Bloom, about what Bloom did not know and could be bothered to find out, but I don't believe their main interest is in literature. Interesting. We are effectively going to read something or the other related to some fellow called Bloom. All right. So now we are getting introduced to this person Bloom, Harold Bloom, who died in 2019 at 89, was an American literary critic and an academic at Yale. He came from a very humble background, and English English was only the third language he learned in childhood. After Yiddish and Hebrew, he succeeded at Cornell and Yale despite the often savage anti-Semitism of the universities at that time. Yale informally restricted the number of Jews to 10% of the student body until the 60s. He taught there from 1955 almost to the day he died, an undoubted inspiration to generations. Now, when they say that, he taught there from 1955 almost to the day he died, an undoubted inspiration of the generation, you know for a fact that there is going to be a question based on this, because how else, why would anybody be inspired? Or maybe that's what my brain is telling me. Okay. So let's read ahead. He was a prolific writer, producing 4 dozen books. Some of them are cranky, including works of biblical textual criticism and a novel. His principal contributions are a theory of the way influence works between writers and a spirited reactionary defense of a traditional Western canon. Now, wait a second. This is a very important line. I don't know why he has written it like this, but very, very, very important line has been thrown at you just like that. I'm going to reread it, obviously, because we are doing an analysis, we are trying to learn something, and that is perhaps because I'd give it the extra bit time that it requires, and I'm not solving a section test. I don't have a timer ka pressure. I am understanding this thing. I might as well not read this passage in an actual test setup, because you can understand there are so many words that are jargonish for me. So let us try to understand this. His principal contributions are a theory of the way influence works between writers and a spirited, reactionary defense of the traditional Western canon. Now, do we know what a traditional Western canon is? Do we know what a reactionary defense mechanism of the traditional Western canon is? Definitely not. Or maybe, we can understand that in the later segment of this passage. Let's see. In later years, he was repeatedly accused of groping his female student. Now, this is very vague, although this term groping is a very disgusting term. Only worth mentioning because in the nervous mind of American universities sticking up for the merits of dead white men such as Shakespeare, Milton, Wordsworth, and molesting your graduate students started to be seen much the same thing. So basically they are only talking about that molestation or that groping of their female students is because both of them are more of the same thing. Great, let's read ahead. Bloom's theory of influence is a strikingly Freudian one. In it, a writer is ignited by love for their greatest predecessors. Oh my god, this is again a very heavy idea that is again getting thrown at you. Bloom's theory of influence is strikingly Freudian one. In it, a writer is ignited by love for their greatest predecessors, then driven by resentment to ride roughshod over that legacy. There are strong misreaders who write something new through the violent misprison. There are strong misreaders who write something new through the violent misprison, and weak ones who just repeat the predecessors. It's an appealing model, but an inadequate to the reality. It leaves out the minor writer who does something quite new, Anna Cowen, Henry Green, and the possibility of a major writer of orthodox classical technique. Now, I could not understand single thing that is written over there. One thing that I have understood is that the Bloom's theory of influence is a strikingly Freudian one. Now, I don't know what Freudian theories are, but hopefully these, for all practical purposes, these guys have actually explained that idea of the Freudian one, which is that the writer that is in context, which is obviously Harold Bloom, he is ignited by the love of his predecessors. Now, who are his predecessors? Obviously, you can imagine Shakespeare and all those people, Milton, Wordsworth. Sometimes they can be okay, let's not digress too much. I hope you guys are smart enough to understand what is written. It also neglects the truth that writers do not only read their greatest predecessors. The Magic Mountain starts from the two of the worst genres in German literature, the spa romance and the Tawdry Bildungsroman, and transforms them. The principal source of Othello is actively embarrassing to read. Bloom's defense of the traditional canon, now they're not using the traditional Western canon, they're using traditional canon. Bloom's defense of the traditional canon is not that helpful in reducing the landscape to a very few peaks glimpsed above impenetrable cloud. Again, bullshit. I don't want to cuss. Otherwise, I would have just said bull fucking shit. What is this? Reducing the landscape to a very few peaks glimpsed above impenetrable clouds. One thing that you could possibly take out from this passage is that the principal source of Othello is actively embarrassing to read. Basically, Othello is not a original. This is basically what they're trying to come at. They're trying giving you, breadcrumbs so that you can, you can work your way through their. Literary critics can do one of the two things. They can set the works of literature in their historical context, what their authors meant, what their readers understood, how they were produced, and so on. There's always rich. These are always rich and difficult questions. Secondly, they can explain what the substance of the work is by talking about the word. Did we understand what this Harold fellow was doing? He was in love with their predecessors. So possibly he was the second type. The second type is the ones that they explain what the substance of the work is by talking about the words. A critic who has no particular relish for words or sentence, or who can't explain his relish, is not going to detain us for long. Relish for words or sentences. Maybe that is the reason why this Harold fellow was also able to do that. Okay, so it took me almost 10 minutes to read the entire this thing. Now you can say that कि सर इतना टाइम ले लिया, 10 मिनट तो आपने रीड ही करने में लगा दिया, अब 5-10 मिनट और लगाओगे इसके क्वेश्चंस को सॉल्व करने में. क्वेश्चन सॉल्व करना मेरा मेन एजेंडा है नहीं, बट स्टिल आई विल डू द दिस थिंग, सॉल्यूशंस एंड ऑल. आई जस्ट वांटेड टू गिव यू एन एनालॉजी कि जब आप ये कहते रहते हो कि यार फिलोसफी फिलोसफी फिलोसफी, दिस इज एन एक्चुअल फिलोसॉफिकल टेक्स्ट. Was it easier for you to understand? Was it easier for you to read? We'll see that through the questions, because I'm hoping that the questions are gonna give me a tough time. The author considers Bloom's criticism deprecative of the traditional Western canon. Actually, he was in support with the Western canon, if I am. I mean, it's written somewhere. I just need to find the exact line wherein, he was in support. So, through my retention of the passage, one thing that I can say is that he was not deprecative of the traditional Western canon. He was in tandem with their thoughts. Okay, I just need to find out. Yeah, so this is where it is. His principal contribution are a theory of the way of influence. Influence works between writers and a spirited reactionary defense of this thing. In later year, he was repeatedly accused of groping as female student. So, see, the idea that I can get out of this line, because the very next line talks about, groping female student, which is not that much great an analysis, you would say. So, when, if I have to eliminate this thing, okay, deprecative is what? Deprecative is something which is, किसी को नीचा दिखाना. Belittle karna is the other googled meaning of this thing. The author consider Bloom's criticism deprecative of the traditional Western canon? I don't think so, because I think he was not belittling it. So okay, so for the time being, I'll keep it reactionary and non-literary. Reactionary to you can say, but what about non-literary? So one thing for sure that I don't know about this one, deprecative. Okay, so I can possibly eliminate this one. Anti-Semitic and inaccurate. Now, first of all, this Bloom fellow himself was a Jew. So, the idea that he is anti-Semitic and inaccurate goes out of the picture. Deprecative and of the traditional Western canon is, I am just eliminating the option based on this particular word, deprecative. Reactionary and non-literary, and the last one is self-obsessed and fallacious. Self-obsessed is a good, this thing is a good, it has a good tone to it. We just have to go back to this idea. Yeah, so only worth mentioning because in the nervous minds of American universities sticking up to the merits of the dead white man and this and this and that, your graduate students started to see him as the same thing. Bloom's theory of influence is striking, Freudian one in it, it's ignited by this thing. It also neglects the truth that writers do not only read their greatest predecessors. Okay. So, I am a bit confused between, you know, between this reactionary and non-literary. Can you say that Bloom's criticism was reactionary of any sort? Non-literary to ho hi nahi sakta. It was literary, obviously, because this is the thing. So maybe I can eliminate this also. So self-obsessed and fallacious is the only one that is, I don't know. This is the only one that is holding up. Let's see. Yep, this is the one. According to the author, how was Harold Bloom an inspiration to the generations? Now we know where exactly this is taken from, because he died of something now. So this possibly is the. So he died in 2019 at 89, an American literary critic and an academic. And he came from his humble background. He knew English only as his third language, and so on and so forth. Yale, despite of his savage anti-Semitism, Yale this. He taught there from 55 to almost the day he died. The day he died is 2019. Okay. As a literary critic, Bloom was known for his innovative interpretation of literary history and the creation of literature. This is out of the context. Left, right, and center out of the context. Bloom became successful as an academic and literary critic despite being a Jew, even in the face. So, one thing, he became successful as an academic and literary critic despite being a Jew, even in the face of savage anti-Semitism of his time. This is given in the passage. This is given, but can you tick this as the correct answer? Correct answer has to be something that talks about why this Harold Bloom fellow was an inspiration to the generations, and he could not be the inspiration just because he was successful as an academic due to his origins of a Jew and in the face of savage anti-Semitism. This is not something that will inspire generations. Read this line. He taught there from 55 almost to the day he died, an undoubted inspiration to the generation. Okay, so this can be eliminated through that idea. Bloom's direct influence as a successful academic literary critic extended to more than half a century. Booyah. This has to be the answer, because this is exactly what we found out in there. Also, please understand, just because they have copy pasted what is given in the passage into one of the options does not necessarily qualify the option as one of the correct answers. Let's read the last one any which ways. As an American literature academic and literary critic, Bloom vigorously defended the concept of Western. He defended the concept of Western canon by producing 4 dozen books on it out of. This is nonsensical. I can't even say out of context, because there is something written like 4 dozen books and something of that. Nonsensical, definitely. Let's see. So yeah, C is the answer. Let's go to the next one. I am not sure. Yeah, so 2 questions correct. In the light of the passage, all of the following can be inferred from the third passage, except, so we have to go back to the third passage first of all. And before reading the options, it is always a wise idea to just form a shadow answer. In the light of the passage, all of the following can be inferred, except he was a prolific writer, producing books, some cranky, including biblical textual criticisms and a novel. His principal contribution are theory of the way of influence. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, so this is an interesting one. How about I put a. So his principal contribution is this: reactionary defense of a traditional Western. Okay, and a spirited reactionary defense of the traditional Western canon. Okay, so he is, the author is talking about his principal contribution are a theory of the way influence works between writers and a spirited reactionary defense of the Western canon. In latter year, he was repeatedly accused of groping females. Okay, let's read the options, because I would not get anything from this part, because groping and comparing that pretty much seem the same thing. Let's read. I don't know. I am not sure about this one. Bloom's contribution to literatures are outdated and dishonorable. Okay, so basically what they're saying is all of the following can be inferred. Contribution to literatures are outdated and dishonorable. Is it dishonorable because he groped the students? So I don't think that his contribution to literatures. First of all, we can debate over it whether it was outdated or not. But dishonorable for what? Because he groped the female students. And booyah, this is your answer. Now you would realize that even in the face of an situation, I don't really need to read anything. The first option is in your face. The first option, I repeat, is in your face. The last one, let's go to the last one. All of the following are implicit in Bloom's theory of influence, except this is again I am hoping this one has to be a bit difficult. Okay, so we again come to this part, and there are 3 paragraphs. Okay, we are talking about all of the following that are implicit, that can be inferred from the theory of influence, except. So let's try and understand the theory of influence first. Theory of influence is a strikingly Freudian one. In it, the writer is, again, he's in a way or the other licking the ass of the greatest predecessors, driven by the resentment and all that nonsense. And then there are strong misreaders also, which is given over there. There are strong misreaders and who write something new through violent misprison or misinterpretations. Misinterpretation, I don't know if this is a typo. Misprison. What is misprision? Could be misinterpretation. So there are strong misreaders who write something new through violent misprision, and weak ones who just repeat the predecessor. It is an appealing model but an inadequate. In the reality, it leaves out the minor writer who does something quite new and all that. Okay, we cannot stop at this. We have to read the next para also, just so that we could be, because I'm not getting anything from this para, and from the other para it neglects the truth of the writer, and the magic mountain starts from this thing, this power from the principles also. Yeah, so if you realize कितना बकवास करता है ये पैसेज, this is full of bullshittery. It neglects the truth writer. Do not only read the greatest predecessor. The magic mountain starts from 2 of the worst genres in German literature. Bull fucking shit. The only thing that I can I said this thing now. The principal source of Othello is actively embarrassing to read. This is the only idea that I will keep. Bloom's defense of the traditional canon is not that helpful. So he is actually defending the traditional canon in reducing the landscape to a very impenetrable bull fucking shit. Yeah. The works of authors such as Shakespeare, Milton and Wordsworth are works of creative originality. Are they works of creative originality? Now exactly this is what is written. The principal source of Othello. Othello has been written by शेक्सपियर. आपको हिंदी में भी इसके बारे में पता होना चाहिए कि there's a movie called ओमकारा based on Othello written by Shakespeare. Obviously Omkara is an adaptation. It's not exactly the same thing as Othello, but the idea remains the same. Is it an creative originality? The principal source of Othello is an actively embarrassing to read. Now that gives you the answer, that the works of authors such as Shakespeare and Milton, Wordsworth are works of creative originality. They were not original. A new work in literature is an expression of the psychological struggle between the author and his literary predecessors. I actually don't even want to read the other options because I have read the passage so much slowly and all that I could literally blindly just pick the answer. Sometimes this works, sometimes this doesn't work. You can also say कि सर ये जो RC passage था ये easy था. Yeah, this was easy. So yeah, I think this is it. I don't think we have any more questions. Yeah, there are no more questions. This is a different para. This is a different passage. Okay, so different passage, different time. Thank you very much. This is me, Somajit Goswami, signing out. Please support the channel. Consider helping us.